All right. Hi, I'm Sanjay, your host for this session. Welcome to another session here at TestMu Conference 2024. Today, we are going to explore how to automate testing of secured mobile apps within CI/CD pipelines, addressing some of the key challenges related to cybersecurity in automated testing environments. Our speaker, Karen Shu, is the Senior Vice President of Mobile DevOps and Security Solutions at Appdome with over 25 years of experience in tech and 5 patents under her belt. Karen is a seasoned expert in securing mobile apps and automating their delivery within DevOps pipelines. In this session, she'll guide us through best practices for testing secure apps, highlighting methods to eliminate the need for separate testing of protected and unprotected builds, reduce complexity, and fully automate testing across devices and OS versions. Karen will also showcase an example automation flow with Lambda test, demonstrating how this approach can improve test coverage, reduce manual testing, and ensure timely releases. This session is a must watch if you're looking to enhance your testing efficiency while maintaining strong cybersecurity practices. After the presentation, we'll have a Q&A session where you can ask Karen your questions. Let's dive in. Karen, over to you.
Thank you, Sanjay, and thank you to the entire Lambda Test team. It's been a pleasure working with you all. I enjoy your partnership and the collaboration in working together on this. I'm very excited to be able to speak to you all today, especially because we'll be talking about this important topic, as Sanjay mentioned, but I'll also be able to show you the integration that Appdome has with Lambda Test in the Lambda Test build to test integration and what that means. So I'm going to start with the presentation and then go through a demo. So if you can't see my screen, please let me know. But what we'll start off with are some definitions. What is security testing versus testing apps with security, and what is the importance of each? What are the challenges of each? And how you can address those challenges, meaning how can you streamline the testing of apps with security, the benefits of doing that. We'll go through a case study of a customer of ours who has effectively done uh, test automation of secured apps with Appdome. And finally, we'll go through a demonstration so you can see how this works in action. So, to start off with definitions, what do we mean by security testing as opposed to testing apps with security? I know that might be a tongue twister. So, to start off with security testing, what we're talking about is detecting or identifying vulnerabilities. So, you may have pen testers or scanning tools that identify weaknesses in the code, the configuration, the app. That's different from being able to test secured apps, which is about validating the app and making sure the app functions as expected after the security is added. In working with a number of organizations, uh, there's a lot of challenge or pain oftentimes that goes into testing secured apps as well as apps in general because there are so many thousands of combinations of mobile devices, OS versions, and apps. And to address, first of all, and go into what we mean by the standards versus in terms of testing, security testing. To talk a little bit more about that, here's a view of some of the standards, whether it's OWASP, NIST, MITRE, other standards. Um, if you were to look at OWASP, MOSVS, as a standard, they provide guidelines, for example, one that you see here on how the app should secure all network traffic according to the current best practices. So that's a standard, that's a guideline that OWASP puts out as part of their application security verification standard. Now, along with that standard, OWASP provides a security testing guide that takes each of these standards and creates a bunch of tests for them, security tests. And the security tests and the standard breaks down into a number of areas, including storage, cryptography, network related security, and so forth. And what organizations will do is take these security tests and create a security assessment. And what they'll be doing in this assessment is looking at an app and looking at the security profile of that app, looking at if the app has, for example, data encryption or code obfuscation, jailbreak and root, and other protections in place. And if it doesn't, then the app is at risk of synthetic fraud, credential stuffing, data breaches, and so forth. So security assessments will, based on the test that the pen testers or the scanning tool do, will come up with a list of issues. Now that presents the first challenge, which is now that you have a set of issues and security features that you need to add, or security objectives that you have, the organization has to come up with a decision point here, has come to a decision point, and that is, do they take the time to fix the issues, meaning refactor the code, go back and fix the source code, go back, make changes, and therefore potentially delay the release because they have to go and make these changes, test those changes, and so forth? Or do they, instead of making these changes, waver away these issues and go directly to releasing the app, which means that now the app is in production with much higher risk? So organizations face this challenge often, and the approach that Appdome takes with customers, and our customers have with Appdome, is to eliminate those issues by automatically or making sure that the builds are automated with the security protections in there. And I'll show you how that works in a bit. So that means with these secure builds or with these automated builds, you are able to not only have those protections added to the app, you're able to see those protections in the app, certify that they're there, and go on with your release process. Now, if you go on with that release process, you come to the second challenge, and that is now testing the apps after the security has been added. And the challenge with that is, as many testers know, the number of combinations is overwhelming. And this is the combinations of apps plus the OS versions, different device types that have to be tested. And that is a daunting challenge that is only compounded with the testing challenges you see here. And that is the testers who are automating their testing processes will often use methods and tools that violate security policies. And that's because the tools that testers use, such as emulators, virtualization, and other tools, are the same tools and methods that hackers use to break into apps. And as a result, that friction slows down the process of releases. And that, for example, means, okay, if you have now an additional handoff you have to do because you have one environment for testing unprotected builds and then another environment for testing protected builds, that friction is going to slow down your release process. And as we talked a little bit about earlier, Sanjay indicated earlier, for releases to get out on time, integration with DevOps pipelines is critical. And the testing has to be integrated with CI/CD workflows, uh, and that makes it important to be for all these systems to be compatible and the solutions to be compatible with CI/CD systems. So, on just a fundamental level, in terms of how organizations test and the tools they use, and on an operational level, in terms of DevOps, we have a number of issues to address, and we'll discuss how we can do that in a bit. But before we do that, what I want to do is delve into a bit more what we mean by the methods that could violate security policies. And these are the methods that testers use. So on the left-hand side, what you see are the way automated testing services will use the tools in blue. And on the right-hand side is the way hackers will use those tools. So, for example, in testing, automated testing, testers will use emulators to simulate different device environments, allowing for the app testing without the need for physical devices. And that's all fine and good. But hackers will also use emulators to analyze the apps and understand how they work for their future exploits. Uh, Now, for virtualization tools, testers will use and run multiple instances of mobile OS environments so they can facilitate parallel testing. But hackers will also use virtualized environments to hide their activities, test malware, and reverse engineer. On the one hand, testers will use debugging tools to look at the code and identify issues, but hackers will use debugging tools to understand how the app works and identify issues within the app that they can exploit later on. Um, and and then testers will use dual spaces to run instances of the same app for testing different scenarios and versions, but hackers will use those same or will exploit dual spaces to run and modify apps in an environment so they can bypass detection. So the point is there are tools that the testers will use for legitimate and productive purposes, but those are the same tools that the hackers will use for their exploits and malicious purposes. So, because this is the case, what we have come to is a new approach that includes two things. Um, First is the ability to integrate with test automation suites like Lambda Test so that you can continue testing in an automated way without having to worry about the process being interrupted or broken. And then that whole process of building the app, securing the app, running the tests is then um, done through or can be automated through a CI/CD or pipeline that you see here, whether it's GitHub, Jenkins, GitLab, and so forth. And you can manage this workflow, as you can see here, through a series of steps um, where you build this step through the library or the marketplace that the CI/CD system provides. You can choose from the different steps or integrations to then automate security as one step and then execute the test automation through, for example, Lambda test. So, how does this work? How does the integration, going back to what we're talking about here, how does the integration from the security part, the security automation, to the testing of the secured app work? Now, that is an integration um, that Appdome has built specifically in partnership with Lambda Test that allows Appdome to recognize when Lambda test or mobile app testing suites are in use. So this allows for automated testing without interruption. It also means Appdome has service logs that log all the security events triggered so that developers can track and monitor all the events throughout the lifecycle. And it also means there is a monitoring tool, which Appdome uses called ThreatScope, and that allows you to visualize the data that is being tested and the testing service being used. So I'll show you how to how we can do all of these things and basically walk through this in the demo. Um, but this is, in a nutshell, the reason behind how Appdome and you can have a automated build system for security integrate with a test automation solution. So what are the benefits? So the benefits are very clear. First of all, you have much faster on-time releases because you have fully automated testing of secured apps for all the device OS version and app combinations for every single release. And we have customers, for example, who have thousands of apps that they have to secure uh, and build and test multiple times, thousands of times a month. And for other customers, they'll have to build multiple times a day at certain times of their releases. So you have much faster on-time releases. You're able to reduce friction in the DevOps pipeline because you've eliminated the need to test protected and unprotected builds separately. And this is automated through integration into the CI/CD pipeline of your choice. You're able to visualize the test data. So as you're testing and after testing, once the app is in production, you can see the testing working. You can see where the features are being used in our monitoring tool and where the protections are working for the apps. And you're able to ensure that compliance with standards like GDPR, HIPAA, and so forth, PCI, DSS are all supported. And that continuous security means continuous protection and automation throughout the development lifecycle, as well as while the app is in production. And finally, that means you as an organization are able to test and scale all the apps that need to be tested as the organization grows, accommodating and supporting new features and testing without having to make changes to your workflow. So, as a case study, we want to talk a bit about FIS. FIS, for those of you who don't know, is a very well known, large, established financial services company that provides mobile apps and other services to financial customers around the world. Through their products, companies, banks, financial institutions process trillions of dollars worth of payments annually. And what FIS did was first use Appdome to protect all their apps from reverse engineering tampering without having to rely on a separate development team or DevOps team. They really did not want to have to code the security features in or use SDKs. And that's why they came to Appdome. Appdome allowed them to scale and protect all of their apps, Android and iOS apps, for all of their customers, um, and maintain that in an automated way. So that was the first step. The second step was, of course, after they secured all those apps, they needed to test that those apps still worked as functionally expected. And that is where they used Appdome and the integration to the mobile testing suites to automate that testing process. And in that way, make sure that all the test automation, as well as compliance throughout the development process, were supported and done automatically. And then finally, with this combined end to end solution, FIS, as well as other organizations, have the continuous security detection, defense, and control. So they're able to see where new attacks are coming from and immediately address them in an upcoming release. So now I'm going to move on to the demonstration. And so in this demonstration, what we'll start with is how, and you can see how this works, how Appdome is used to protect or to apply the protections that are needed for an app in an automated way. We'll show you how that build process works, and then we'll go on and show how then you can create a build specifically for testing within Lambda test. Then I'll show you how you can test those features within Lambda test. So just to review and go back to how a lot of organizations do this, they'll start off with oftentimes a security assessment or an objective. So I want to have and make sure that my data is encrypted. I want to support and make sure that the hackers cannot reverse engineer my app. So that means we'll have to have code obfuscation or some set of objectives or issues that they've found. Now, as an example, one of the OWASP set of guidelines or standards is to make sure, as part of the network, part of the standards, to make sure that the network traffic is secured and that is done to a number of best practices, right? So they will talk about using um, and authenticating the endpoint, for example, with TLS. And so this is where Appdome has a number of features as part of our secure communications category of features that includes blocking non-SSL connections in Android, iOS, and Android apps. And so I wanted you just to think about that as we go and look at the platform. So this is the Appdome platform, and everything I'm showing you here through the GUI, you can do through an API call. I'm just showing you the GUI today for ease of demonstration. But on the left-hand side is where you would load or you would see your loaded apps. So the first thing you would do is load an app, um, and you can load an IPA, uh, APK, AB file, and that's uh, what you see here, being able to upload the app. Once you have uploaded the app, then you can add the protections to that app that are addressing the objectives you have. So Appdome has over 300 features. Oops. Um, sorry, one second here. Let me adjust. Okay, there we go. Appdome has over 300 different features. We've organized them along a number of tabs here. So, security focused features that address encryption, root detection, secure communication, and so forth. Fraud features that include social engineering prevention, but also malware prevention, geocompliance features that ensure protection against things like the use of fake locations, um, detecting when teleportation happens. So, a number of different features, 300 features. So, what companies can do instead of having to code each and every one of these features in, companies can just select the features they want and turn that feature on with a click of a toggle or an API call. And so, like we were talking about before, we had the need, let's say, in our objectives or in a security test that we did, to protect against or blocking of non SSL connections. So, protecting that connection between the app and a server. And um, let's say we also had the issue of protecting against um, data leakage and protecting the privacy of a user of an app. And that would include copy paste prevention. Now, for these features, what Appdome provides you to do with the platform is not only add that feature in, but also enhance the user experience or notify the user when a security event happened. And uh, organizations are able to control that user experience or make that user experience better through this notification. So you can customize these features um, and add in, specific messaging to call, say, a 1-800 number. But basically, you're able to control the user experience and say, in one case, I want the app to close and display this message. In another case, I want to let the user continue to use the app, but display the message and send all that telemetry data then to the developer and to the app so that the app and developer can decide what to do next or in different situations depending on the telemetry data. But the building of an app with the protections in there is as simple as a click of a toggle, like I was saying, or an API call. And then all you have to do is simply click this button, build my app, or call the API, call for building the app. And now what the platform is doing is looking at the app, all of the frameworks using the app, the languages, looking at the desired security features that need to be added and figuring out um, with the AI how and what is the best way to add those protections to the app. And the platform adds those protections to the app binary. And these protections are libraries or plugins that are added to the app binary. So the source code is not changed, but these additions are made to the app binary. And once the app uh, once this process is finished, two artifacts result, one of which is the secured app, which is a secured IPA, APK, AB file, and also a certified secure document. And that document contains all of the protections that have been added to the release. And this is a document that you can then use for release purposes, compliance purposes, to show that indeed the app contains the protections that are supposed to be in the app. So, in the time that we took just to talk about how this process works, you'll see that the app will be built, and I can download it and then use it as part of the next phase in my process. And as we are going through this, you'll see all of the things that the platform is doing are explained here in the interface in terms of the additions that are being made, the optimizations that are being made to the app so that the size of the app does not dramatically increase, if at all. So when this process is over, I'll be able to show you the certified secure document, which then has the protections outlined in it, and then also be able to download the app itself. And as we go through this process here and this demonstration, please feel free to put any questions you have in the chat. At the end of the session, we'll go through those questions, and if I don't get to them for some reason, we'll be able to follow up with you separately, or you can come to our booth and get another more custom demo there, or ask any other further questions you have. So as discussed earlier, now you're able to sign the app and download it. You're also able to see the certified secure document, which shows you all of the features that have been added to the app, as well as who added the app, the fusion set or the security configuration that's used, or really the security rules that are used, and all of the features that are in that fusion set or those security rules, including the secure communication, which blocks non-SSL transactions, and also the mobile privacy that we talked about. And with every release, we add anti-debugging, anti-tampering features to prevent reverse engineering. So now that you have this, I wanted to just show you that is the app that say you built for production. What you would also do for testing is build a version for testing to complete the process. That would allow you to then build the build the app for Lambda test specifically. And when you build this version, as we discussed before, the Appdome trust model knows that the Lambda test suite is being used and will enable that testing to occur without interruption. And so that's what building that particular version will allow you to do. I did this yesterday, and so I just will show you, or I did this earlier today. We'll show you what I did. So you can see here in the certified secure document, oops, let me do that again. In the certified secure document, you can see this version was built for testing, and that includes the Lambda test logo here. So you can see it was built specifically for Lambda test. And that's what you'll see down here. At the bottom, you'll see the features that we added, who added them, and when, just like we discussed before. And now I'm going to switch gears and take that IPA APK file and go over to the Lambda test environment. And you can see I have loaded it here. I'm going to, with the Lambda test environment, start a test here. And you can see here, I'm starting up a new device. The app is being loaded by Lambda test to this device. And there are a number of features I think are great as part of Lambda test that are easily seen on the left-hand side here. One of them that I really like is this not only ability to record the session, take screenshots, but also to be able to set things like the IP geolocation. Now, what you can see here is there are a number of errors that came up, and I'll go through those errors in a bit. I will also, let me just see here. So I opened up the app, and now I'm going to try to copy paste. Okay, oops. And if I try to paste here, you'll see here I get an error message saying the app provider has chosen to prevent copy and pasting from this app. So I'm going to go back to the two things that we looked at before. There are a number of issues and go back to why we were having those issues. So the first one was being able to test the SSL connection. And so here there will be a error that comes up because a non-SSL connection was being attempted, and that will produce an error. The second issue that we found that we were looking for and had set for was the mobile privacy. So that ability to be able to, let me just go back to the app here. Oops. To the platform, that ability to be able to, within a copy paste function, prevent that copy paste. That's what you see here. And when you look at copy paste, what it does is it prevents that function and allows you to put up an error message, which is that error message that you saw. So that is this error message here when we had it enabled. The app provider has chosen to prevent copy and pasting from this app. And so you can see the functionality is correct, or the functionality is the app is behaving as expected. And we can end the session and then continue with additional tests later on. Now, going back to the presentation, I just want to summarize what we looked at because there were a bunch of things that we just saw in the demo. The first that we started off with is on the top left-hand corner, which is the Appdome platform. Here's where I showed you how you could easily add security features based on your security objectives. So that included being able to block non-SSL connections, and also the ability to prevent copy paste. And those features that we added in the platform, we could see were added in the certified secure document for the testing build that we did specifically for Lambda test. And then when we actually did the testing with Lambda test, you could see in the resulting functionality the errors, not the errors, the notifications that came up, or basically the messages saying, hey, you're not allowed to copy paste. That was set by the organization. And the last thing we'll show you is the upper right-hand corner is seeing these events in the monitoring tool that we have. So there are 4 different parts to Appdome. In the demo so far, we've covered the Appdome platform, certified secure, and threat events, which is that being able to see and control the notifications and behavior in the app itself. So to end with the demo, I want to go and just walk through what threat scope looks like and how you can monitor events both in testing and in production. So I'm going to go to our threat scope product here, which is our monitoring environment. And this dashboard, just to orient you, shows you a number of things. So for the apps that are in active testing, like we are, or apps that are in production, you're able to see the source of the attacks, where they're coming from, what attacks they are. You're able to see these attacks broken down by app. So, what type of app, if you have multiple apps, the operating systems, and the devices. You're also able to see the apps broken down by the type of attack, whether it's fraud, security, and so forth. And I can select on the apps that Appdome has defended against, as well as the attacks and the threats that Appdome has defended against, as well as the attacks that Appdome has not defended against yet. So for the testing aspect of our demo, we can see if I click on build to test events, I can look at for this time period, right, just the events that Appdome has protected against, and those include um, a number of security events. Sorry, I need to do this for all our data. And that includes a number of security events here, including the ability to block non-SSL connections. And I can even scroll down and filter more on that data and look at specific builds. And so I can take the bundle ID that and select the bundle ID to identify then just the threats, just the attacks of that app. And separately, I can look at all the data, go back and look at all the data, and I can look at what attacks now that my app is, say, in production. I can now look at all the data and look at what are the most common attacks that I need to fight against. And let's say here I'm looking at fraud. It's Android Viva Bridge. I can simply go back now to my app, and within the product, click on the app that I want to protect because I have some new features, and go to Android Debug Bridge and simply turn that on and build my app. So I know we went through a lot of things here, but in summary, with Threat Scope, I can look at events specifically for testing, which we showed you. So those were the block non-SSL connection events that we were testing for. I can also, once the app is out in the wild, identify new threats and attacks that the app is not protected against and add those easily into the next release. So I'm just going to wrap up here. So we have a few minutes left for Q&A. So with the combination of Appdome and Lambda test, you're able to achieve agile DevSecOps throughout the life cycle, whether it's through building protections in, adding, defending, against attacks to testing that those protections, once they've been added to the app, work as expected, all the way to monitoring and ensuring that full life cycle. To uh, try an Appdome, don't take my word for it. Definitely sign up for a free trial or come to me for a customer trial and or custom trial. And also watch our webcasts with penetration testing partners so that you can see the work that our partners have done and learn how these pen testers have proven that Appdome has actually protected the apps in the way they're supposed to. So this is where on our website you can see how you can sign up for the Appdome trial. Here are examples of webcasts that we've done with our pen test partners, where they each took a separate security objective, whether it was Android root or protecting against SSL pinning bypass or protecting against the use of Frida. We have many webcasts that show this, as well as separate reports you can see where they have validated that the Appdome protections indeed work in all of these cases. And you can see the best practices that they've used, both through their work as well as the articles that Appdome has on social engineering and other topics that we discussed today. And that enables then you to achieve the agility, automation, resilience, optimization, and finally the scalability that you really need to remain ahead of these attackers, ahead of the regulations that keep coming, and all the changes in the industry. So I encourage you to please connect with me, visit our website, and ask me any questions that you have. So at this time, I will stop sharing for a bit so that we can return to any Q&A that the audience might have. Oops. Okay. So, all right. So again, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. I see, let me just go back up here. Oh, sorry, go
Yes.
ahead.
Hi, Karen. Yes. Let me pick a couple of questions. One of the question that had a bit of humor, but I think that it would be a good question to answer. I'm just bringing it to the stage, which is, do we as testers need to become part-time cybersecurity experts in order to keep up with industry demand?
So no, and that is why we have this integration between Appdome and Lambda Test to show you, because this is how you can very easily continue the testing that you need to do to show that the apps are functional. Now, if you do want to learn more about cybersecurity and expand, what you're doing, absolutely. That's something that we can certainly work with you and partner with you on. And that's why I shared with you the information that you have at your fingertips today. So you can definitely do your jobs and and I would say even more so now because of the automation and because you're not being prevented by the fact that oftentimes tests get interrupted
Right.
when security is added, right? But if you wanted to expand your knowledge of the world and security and do security tests, that's why there are tools like the OWASP testing guide that's offered there that will actually give you the specific test that you want to do, should you want to go there. But that's not, at all a requirement. What we're
Right.
talking about here today is that you're able now to do the testing that for many organizations was not possible before.
Right, right, Karen. We'll just take one last question before we end the session. This one is very Appdome specific, so I thought, since we already have you here, this question would be best for you to answer. So the question is, which was shared by Paul, is Appdome compatible with chaos engineering practices, which can sometimes seem like a risky strategy for testing? especially with compliance considerations?
Yeah, so I am just looking up uh, the oh the okay. So you're talking about the practice of injecting faults into a system to test its resilience. Now, so we work with a number of different pen testers. So live pen testers, meaning people who are doing the tests where they may be um, you know, uh, trying to inject code. Um, that's all part. And we also work with scanning tools that may be doing some kind of dynamic testing. In general, Appdome, and the reason why we're around is because so many live attacks are happening, right? There are so many attempts to change the code. There's so many tools out there like Frida, Magisk, that are the same tools developers use, but now hackers use them. And those hackers are now trying to inject things in that are not great, are malicious and bad for apps and bad for people. So that's almost our, along with all the other things, that's our one of our big focus areas is preventing these live attacks. And so it is um, yes, and you may call it a risky or aggressive area of testing, but we are focused on defending against those attacks and can speak to you about how to, um, our experience and what we've seen as best practices for making those tests the most productive as possible.
All right, perfect. So yeah, on that note, Karen, thank you so much for that, valuable and insightful session. We've learned so much, and your expertise in securing and automating mobile app testing has been truly enlightening. I'd also like to remind all the attendees that this session, along with all the others, has been recorded and will be available on Lambda Test's YouTube channel. Feel free to revisit the content or share it with your team. Have a great day and stay tuned for more engaging sessions coming up. Thank you.
You.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you very much.